All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us as part of our NJLA Earth Day celebration. You heard me read Living Green, A Turtle's Quest for a Cleaner Planet. And now we're really excited as part of NJLA to welcome the author of the book, Artie Knapp. Artie, I just want to thank you for joining us and also for giving us permission to use your book as part of our Earth Day celebration.
It's my pleasure, Ken. It's good to be with all the students and everyone in New Jersey. Hello to the Garden State.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. We've been having so many kindergarten through third grade students and even students in the upper grades now that we've launched a First Chapter Friday. And it's just been awesome. Even though our students are learning at home, we've been trying to do daily read alouds and to share new books and resources with them. And you are our first author interview, so thank you.
Oh, hey, I'm honored.
So I guess, one of the things that we have a whole Earth Day project, and the kids are making Earth Day posters, and we're sending them, some special surprises in the mail. But, beyond that, what message do you have for our kids about the importance of Earth Day?
Well, it's such a, it's such a special day because every day I think every day should be Earth Day. And because what that means is it's acknowledging the importance of our planet as far as keeping it clean, the environment. And this book is really, I think at its core, focusing on the do not litter part for our planet, which, kids can themselves have a big impact on that. Not throwing trash on the ground and everywhere I drive, it seems, I see people still littering. And so I think anytime we can get a message out there that, hey, we gotta keep where we live clean, and that's the first starting point there. A lot of other bigger issues, of course, but I think especially for students, that's a good start right there.
Absolutely. So when I was reading the book, one of the connections that I had immediately was just the whole idea of respecting nature, and I was having that connection too to as I was following the story of the turtle, it was reminding me of being a little kid and going to the lake with my dad and fishing and looking for frogs and turtles. And so it's just so awesome that this book connects with nature, but also the important message of respecting our planet. So what inspired you to write this book? It tells such a cool story.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, well, it's interesting. This is one of those, it was a project actually that I was asked to write. And, I've been rarely fortunate as a writer. I've had over 40 works for kids published, but this was, I think, only one of 2 works I've ever had published where someone came to me and said, hey, can you write a story on Living Green? And it is a company called KPMG who I worked for at the time. And their U.S. headquarters is in New Jersey, ironically, so in Montville. But they have a Living Green program, and they came to me and said, hey, Artie, would you have any interest in writing a story on Living Green? And that's a particular passion of mine anyway, so I was excited about it. And this goes back to a winter break of 2010, which is hard for me to believe. It'll be 10 years in December that I started writing the book. And so it was one of those things where someone came to me and said, hey, will you write it? I said, sure. And then it just kind of, from there, I love nature, I love animals, and I usually use animals as my main character. So I think that was the part of where the turtle came in.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so many of our young readers love, animals featured in the stories. And so it definitely came across with the story of the turtle. So how did you know, I guess a lot of our kids, they're at home writing and, they're creating their own stories, maybe even about Earth Day or animals and the planet. How did you know that you wanted to be an author?
Well, I had a strong passion for storytelling, and it's interesting. I never thought I'd be a children's author specifically. I had a passion and a strong interest in storytelling. Knowing I was going to speak with you today, I wanted to show this to the kids because I was inspired initially to be a writer because of science fiction shows like The Twilight Zone, a science fiction miniseries called V from the 1980s, and certainly not least Star Trek.
Oh, awesome.
That's a Christmas ornament. Yeah, but the original Star Trek, really, I just loved stories and was inspired, and I kind of wanted to be a part of that. And so I actually moved when I was in my early 20s. I moved to New York, lived in actually New Jersey for a while too, Weehawken.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I studied filmmaking and worked on some student films as a volunteer, and then that inspired me to kind of write and produce and direct my own film, which I did. It's a sci-fi movie called Pluto's Plight, and that kind of got me on the path of writing, which I really enjoyed. And then many years later, after that, a few years later, I had randomly wrote a couple children's stories that were published.
What was your first book?
Well, they were stories, and what I mean by that and differentiating it, so my first prep book was actually my 14th published work for kids, meaning the first 13 were stories that were published in newspapers, magazines, and but I had two children's stories published simultaneously at the same time. It was The Wasp and the Canary and The Hummingbird Who Chewed Bubblegum. and so yeah, getting those two stories published with it's a wonderful site called Candlelight Stories. Getting published is not so easy, and so getting published was a great feeling, and I think that kind of inspired me to write another children's story because I had those two published. And then the third story was a game changer for me as an author as far as writing children's literature specifically. It's called Sprinting Spencer Still Wants to Run. And it's about a former racehorse who's struggling with his racing days being over. And I think when I wrote that story, there was a change in me where I thought, I'm really enjoying this. Maybe I'm onto something here. And now I can't imagine not writing for kids. I love it. It's a real treat. And
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and you know what? That's such a great message for our kids in New Jersey too, because the fact that you didn't just start with books, you started with stories, and you started with sending them to newspapers. And we're actually, this month, in addition to celebrating Earth Day, we're actually wrapping up our New Jersey student writing contest. Okay. So teachers are submitting works from kids, and it's just great to be able to know that there's a wider audience out there, even beyond just your classroom teacher. You could be writing for everyone.
Absolutely, Ken. I mean, there's so many opportunities for young students. There's contests everywhere for writing competitions specifically for students. And, one thing I wanted to point out today was Highlights Magazine, which, most kids are familiar with.
Sure.
You can be any age. I think you have to be 16 to actually get paid to have something published by them. But they encourage young students and young writers to submit stories. And so you can be published in Highlights even if you're 10 years old. And, so there's a lot of opportunities. I think, with the technology now, with so many newspapers going back online, or almost all online versus print, it's kind of opened up the opportunity, especially for local newspapers, for kids to, for example, if it's Christmas time, you can reach out to the editor about a Christmas story and, see if it's something they would have an interest in. I mean, it's because of the print newspapers only had so much space, and they kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller because of ads and everything. Everything was shifting online. All of a sudden now it's opened up a new opportunity for a lot of writers because there's no limitations with the website. You're not limited so much. So all of a sudden now there's more, I'm seeing this, there's more writing contests, and more papers are being more open to authors submitting stories, and they're having more writing competitions. So it's kind of, a lot of that's coming back now, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to look into that, and also, let our kids in New Jersey know about some of those opportunities. So what advice do you have for our K-3 kids there, or even just our students in New Jersey in general? They're at home, a lot of people are trying to balance, reading and writing, doing their math, eating, having snack, playing, getting fresh air safely when they can. Like, what advice do you have for the kids at home who want to be writing, or maybe even the kids who are having trouble picking up a pencil?
Right. Well, first of all, it's such a, it's really, I want to say personally, thank you to all the educators out there, and the teachers in New Jersey. educators like yourself, Kim, for doing what you guys are doing right now. I mean, it really puts in perspective how important education is, because even though in a lot of ways the world's stopping right now, the show must go on with education and schools. And so it's, you know, I have a 10-year-old daughter named Alana, and, you know, it can be challenging, you know, keeping her from getting bored out of her mind every day. But I think it's important to kind of, as much as you can, keep a schedule and, you know, read so much per day for pleasure reading. You know, obviously some of the kids are going to be assigned work to read because they're still going to school, but from home. But make sure you set time aside to do the things that you do enjoy as much as you can. You know, whether it's watching a movie or, like I said, reading a good book. But this is a great opportunity to discover new hobbies. You know, if you've never been one who paints before, you know, try something new, and you might surprise yourself. You know, that's something I would really encourage kids to do.
That's a good point. I think, you know, if you're scheduling that time in the day and you're including an opportunity to read, an opportunity to write, but then you're also including an opportunity to learn something new. There's so many cool things that you could do right now. I mean, even just reading your book about living green was just reminding. I spent so many days, even just in my own backyard, you know, in the garden, getting my hands in the dirt and planting things. And, you know, that's not something that I would have necessarily had as much time to do had I been, you know, not at home.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm using this time to learn chess. You know, it's something I've never. It's one of those bucket list things. I mean, all these years I've never learned how to play the game of chess. So I'm reading about it now, and I'm excited about learning how to play that. You know, so
that's awesome.
That's something new.
So is there anything else that you want to tell our students about Earth Day or being an author?
Well,
message.
Yeah, I mean, I consider it a great privilege to be able to write for kids. It's become an important part of my life, and so, you know, one thing I wanted to encourage young students on today is, as we mentioned earlier, Ken, I mean, looking at different outlets for their writing. If they have an interest in, you know, submitting stories themselves, poems, like I said, there's magazines out there that are actually not only accept works from kids as far as to be published in, you know, their magazine, but there's magazines out there that are only accepting content from kids. They're kid central magazines where kids write the stories, you know, which is fantastic. And the earlier you start, the better. Yeah, that's the thing about writing. It's like anything else. You got to keep at it and keep working. And the more you do it, the better you'll get. And, you know, so that's the advice I'd give them for any of your viewers who have an interest in doing writing themselves. As far as Earth Day, you know, hey, it's, you know, as they say, this is the only planet we have. It's precious. And, you know, I think what we're experiencing right now kind of really puts that in perspective. So,
sure.
You know, but yeah, I would say as much as what students can do to help make a difference is, like in the book Living Green, you know, they go on a field trip, and we'll get back there when, you know, things get back to where we're not confined to our homes. But I think student involvement with local communities, like with Thurman's story, whether it be a river, helping clean up, you volunteering. I know a lot of schools do get involved with that, and I think it's a good way to introduce kids to the importance of that, and that it does make a difference. Littering's not a good thing, and unfortunately, you'll see it everywhere, not just on our highways or our streets, but, you know, I mean, people unfortunately pollute in water too. So I think it's a good way to show kids that there's another way, and the other way is the way to go about it. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us and being part of NJLA's Earth Day celebration. And just another quick question. If our students want to learn more about your writing or your books, where can they go?
Yeah, my website's artieknapp.com. Just ARTIEKNAPP.com. And I keep a latest news section up there on, you know, the latest things I have with my writing. A lot of my picture books, there's video versions of the different books. so they can view them too. And there's a lot of content there for kids to check out. And I appreciate them doing it. You know, they're the reason why I do it. Pure and simple.
Awesome.
So,
Hey, well, thank you again, and we hope that you have a great, spring season, and enjoy your Earth Day, and keep writing for kids.
I definitely will. Thank you guys, and stay safe, and happy Earth Day.
All right, thanks. You too.
You bet. Thank you.